They gave me my termination notice on a Thursday, slid it across the break room table like it was a parts requisition. 10 years at Delwood Fabrication. And the man who handed it to me, a regional HR rep I'd never met, couldn't hold eye contact for more than 2 seconds. I said thank you, folded the paper, and drove home to pick up my son Marcus from school. That was 6 weeks before the river. I want to tell you about the river, because that's where this story turns. But you need to know what those 6 weeks looked like first. I was 44 years old, a widower, with a boy who still left his sneakers in the exact center of the doorway every single afternoon. I had a mortgage, a truck with 190,000 miles on it, and an unemployment appeal pending before a Tanner County hearing board. Delwood had contested my claim. Their position was that I'd been let go for cause, a single safety log discrepancy that I still say was a data entry error, and they say was negligence. The hearing was set for a Wednesday. I had no lawyer to mend. I had a folder of printed mail and a handwritten timeline I'd put together at the kitchen table after Marcus went to bed. I had going for me was the truth. I spent 14 years on that floor without a serious incident. I knew it, and somewhere in their files, they knew it too. But knowing the truth and being able to prove it in a gray municipal room with a 3-member board staring at you are two different things. The Saturday before the hearing, Marcus asked if we could go to Tanner River Park. He'd been patient with me through those 6 weeks. Quieter than a boy his age should have to be, and I'd been leaning on that patience harder than I had any right to. I said yes. We packed sandwiches. I let him bring the old fishing pole we never actually used for fishing, just for the ceremony of it. And we drove out to the park on a cool October morning, with the leaves turning orange along the east bank. It was a good morning, that matters to say. We ate by the water and Marcus found a crawdad under a flat rock, and we spent 20 minutes examining it, like it was a discovery of great scientific importance. There were a few other families downstream, voices carrying light across the water. Was sitting on the bank, watching my son crouch at the edge, making sure he didn't lean too far, when I heard it. Not a scream, more like a hard gasp, and then a woman's voice going from calm to something else in the space of a single syllable. A little girl, maybe 4 years old, had gone off the edge of the fishing platform about 40 yards downstream. The platform had no railing on the far side, just a weathered plank end. The water there was fast after the week's rain, maybe 4 feet deep, the current pulling toward the bend. The mother was on the platform, and the girl was not. I don't remember deciding to run. I remember the cold when I hit the water, and I remember the current being stronger than it looked from the bank, and I remember the girl's red jacket and the way she was turning in the current, not quite under. I got to her in maybe 10 seconds. I got an arm around her and got my feet down, and walked us both toward the shallows, and she was crying but breathing, and that was everything. By the time I waded out with her, 3 people had come running from both directions. I handed her to the first person whose arms came out, a man in a gray sweatshirt, and I stepped back. The mother came off the platform and had her daughter in her arms before I'd taken 2 more steps. She was saying her daughter's name over and over. That name was the whole world to her right then. And it should have been. I stood there dripping for a moment, and then I walked back up the bank to where Marcus was standing very still, with his eyes wide. He said, "Dad." I said, "She's okay." He nodded once, the way he nods when something is settled, and then he handed me our one dry towel. I never spoke to the mother. In the commotion, the park staff arriving, someone calling it in on their phone, I was just a wet man in a group of concerned strangers. My hand had caught a submerged branch on the way out. The heel of my palm had a cut that needed a bandage but not stitches. I wrapped it with the first aid kit from my truck. Chris asked me on the drive home if I was okay. I told him I was. He thought to put it for a mile, and then said, "You were fast." I told him I used to be faster. He said, "You were fast enough." I thought about that the rest of the way home. The hearing was Wednesday at 9 in the morning, in a room on the 3rd floor of the Tanner County Municipal Building, with fluorescent lights and a folding table, and 3 board members who had read my file and had not, I could tell, been moved by it. Delwood's representative was supposed to be the same regional HR manager who'd handed me my termination notice 6 weeks ago. That man had called in sick that morning. The company sent someone else. I was looking at my folder when she walked in. I heard the door, looked up, and I did not recognize her. She was professionally dressed, carrying a slim case, and she set her materials at the table across from me without looking up. One of the board members said her name for the record, Claire Soto, Regional Art Director, Delwood Fabrication. She looked up when she heard her seat pulled out, and our eyes met across the table. I watched her look at my face. Then her eyes went to my right hand, where the bandage was still visible at the heel of my palm, white against my skin. She was very still for a moment. Then she looked at my face again. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say that seemed right. Board chair asked if both parties were ready to proceed. I said yes. Claire Soto said she needed one moment, and she opened her case and looked at something inside it. A document, or maybe her phone, I couldn't see. And then she closed it. She said, "The company is withdrawing its objection to Mr. Caulfield's claim." The board chair looked up from his papers. He asked her to repeat it. She did. Voice was steady. She said the discrepancy in question had been reviewed further, and the company's position was that it did not rise to the level of cause. She said Delwood would not be contesting the unemployment claim and apologized for the delay in reaching that conclusion. Took 11 minutes to close out the hearing. I signed 2 forms. The board members gathered their things with a slightly puzzled efficiency of people whose morning had just gotten shorter. I sat there for a moment after they left, my folders still open in front of me, the handwritten timeline I'd never gotten to use sitting right there on top. Claire Soto was putting her things back in her case. She didn't look at me while she did it, and I didn't push. What she'd just done was its own complete thing, and I wasn't going to stack words on top of it. She was almost at the door when she stopped. She turned around. She said, "My daughter's name is Sophia. She's 4. She paused. "She asks about the man from the river." I didn't have anything prepared for that, I said. "How is she?" she said. "She's good. She's been telling everyone at preschool about it." A small, tired smile came across her face. "She says you were like a fish," I said. "My son says I was fast enough." She nodded, and I could see something working behind her eyes. Maybe gratitude, maybe something more complicated, maybe just the weight of the last few days catching up. She said, "Thank you, Mr. Caulfield, for the river, being someone who that mattered to." She left. I drove home and picked Marcus up from school. He asked how the hearing went. Told him. It went fine. He said good, and went in to change his shoes and left them in the exact center of the doorway. I stood there looking at them for a minute, and I thought about the kind of worth that doesn't require a room full of people to witness it. The kind that happens at 40 yards in cold water, in the 10 seconds before anyone knows your name. Marks came back out in his sneakers and looked at me, standing there in the hallway. He said, "You okay, Dad?" I said I was better than okay. He believed me because I meant it.